All right, we're gonna have a couple public hearings here tonight before we go into the regular plan commission meeting. During the public hearings, we'll have a little presentation and then there'll be time for public comment during each public hearing. After all the comments have been made, we'll move on to the other public hearing. The public hearings will be closed, and at that time, we'll move into the regular plan commission meeting. Right. So then I will open up the public hearings and plan commission meeting at the Richard Young Fire Station at North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road on March 26, 2025 at 6:31 PM. Roll call, please.
President Osterman.
Here.
Trustee Plotecker is absent and excused. Trustee Beal is present on Zoom. Trustee Moonen.
Present.
And Inspector Ilhoffen.
Here.
Commissioner Eberly.
Here.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Commissioner McCormick.
Here.
Commissioner McDonald is absent and excused. Planner Sumwalt.
Here.
Attorney Macy.
Here.
Engineer Lysis is present in the audience. Administrator Green.
Here.
And Clerk Capazzo Ketch to record the minutes.
Thank you. This was given that joint public hearings will be held by the Lisbon Village Board and Plan Commission on Wednesday, March 26th, starting at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Memorial Fire Station, North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road, to solicit public comments on the following items. We have hearing number one, a request by Ryan Fritsch, Newman Developments, for an amendment to the text of various sections of Exhibit E of the Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan. The application requests that removal of language that limits plan amendments to an annual basis and requires out-of-cycle amendment reviews to be considered only for rare and extreme circumstances, as well as minor corrective and technical issues. All right, who'll be presenting this one?
So we have a petition before the Plan Commission for a comprehensive development plan amendment. This was last before the village board back on January 8th. The direction at that time to Newman Development was to, rather than seek some type of exception for an out-of-cycle comp plan amendment, which they were contemplating for a particular development, to propose the amendment that you have before you to Exhibit E. Exhibit E from the Comprehensive Development Plan outlines the amendment procedures for that document. The previous requirement was that applications be submitted in the fall. And they would all be bundled and sent along to the county when we were a town at the same time. And that was the county's preference. That was their process. That goes back to a time when all of the communities in Waukesha County that participated in a grant-funded, multi-jurisdictional comprehensive development plan together all followed those same rules. And so things have changed since that time. The town is incorporated into a village. The county has gone outside of this process itself in past instances. So the proposed change or changes, I should say, are outlined in a redlined version of the document, which is included in your packets. Some of the rationale from the petitioner as far as why to allow this type of amendment include a limited development season, property owner rights, and then the housing crisis is also referenced. By allowing anyone to propose a comprehensive development plan amendment when a project comes up means that they won't have to wait until the fall for the timeline that was outlined previously in Exhibit E. The petitioners are here in the audience this evening. If there's any specific questions for them, you have Folth's memo that kind of summarizes what took place at that January 8th board meeting and what's being requested. The conditions are pretty boilerplate as far as what's in there if the Plan Commission wishes to approve this.
Any questions from the commission at this time?
I
Joe?
have a question for the planner. I'm concerned about, and this is not a change from what was before, but the lack in the ordinance and the existing ordinance and the amended ordinance, there's no criteria for changing the comp plan. This is just more or less the way I read this, an administrative function. You can do it more often than once a year, and I understand that part. But it seems like there should be some criteria as opposed to anybody just showing up and say, I want to change. I don't know, quite honestly, I don't have any great wording that would add to that, but I was just curious what your thoughts are on that.
The village could come up with criteria, you know, we could look at, examples of comparable communities and what, you know, what their language is particularly. The main thing is that you have consistency, right? State statute says that your land use plan and your zoning need to be consistent. And so that's how these things come to our attention, right? Somebody has an idea to use a property a certain way. And we look at the comp plan to say, okay, what's the future land use prescribed by that guiding document? And then, you know, what is the petitioner requesting as far as a zoning? And in the case of residential, when you're looking at the comp plan and thinking about zoning, you're really talking about what's the density that's going to be prescribed for that area. And that's the case for the Pacific example that precipitated this proposed amendment. So as far as criteria, the main thing that I would say when you're looking at something like the type of amendment that is going to be on as another item coming up would be, does it make sense given the surrounding context of the area? So when you're looking at specific items, that's one of the things that you look at. That's one of the things that we frequently comment on in our staff reviews. When you're talking about, you know, are there objective criteria that the Plan Commission should consider when looking at comp plan amendments? They're going to be different on a case-by-case basis, depending on what a petitioner is looking to do. And typically, it is going to be, the things that you're going to see more often are going to be pertaining to the land use map and somebody wanting to prescribe something different than what was planned based on a specific development that they have in mind.
Yeah. My biggest concern is that the decision that's made by the Plan Commission and the village board on a specific instance, I would think we need to have in that action the criteria that we used to make that determination, to make it defensible. That's what I'm concerned about. Right now, what we have before us tonight, there's nothing there. So we can't just, I guess we just have to watch ourselves when that's done. And we come up with reasoning for or against. Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I don't have any questions. I did have a couple of comments. I think I understand where that September date came from, and, but I do still think it's important to have deadline for village planning purposes, for staff workload purposes, to have a set deadline. I mean, I don't think we get a tremendous amount of requests to change the comp plan every year, but I think September is a realistic deadline for planning for spring construction. Maybe add a second deadline in March. So every 6 months there's a deadline, but I don't see a free for all for whenever anybody wants to. I would like to see for planning purposes to have at least one, if not two deadlines. And I guess with regard to their support document for this, I don't feel the issue is that delays are caused by the village or that we are in a housing crisis. We have 11 new subdivisions under construction between Sussex and Lisbon right now. And that's not counting the ones that haven't started construction yet. So we have more than enough housing. And I guess I would like to see some concrete deadlines for changing the comp plan.
I agree with the concrete deadlines. Other than that, I have nothing further. I do agree with Sherry.
Sean?
Yeah, I concur.
I thought of the deadline thing too. I thought the natural staff workload would kind of dictate when that comes through. So I guess I defer to the staff and their expertise on how they would manage that, if it's, you would wait for a few to come in, or if you just process them as they come in.
We can set deadlines similar to how we do any other deadlines for plan commission. We just extend them out 30 extra days. So they have to apply, let's say 60 days prior to give staff the adequate amount of time. But we can make that through a part of the plan commission application process as opposed to part of the comprehensive plan document.
Yeah, the limiting factor for these is that they have a different requirement for public hearing notice. We have to do a class 1 30-day notice for a comp plan amendment, which is different than what we do for, you know, a typical class 2 notice for like a conditional use or a rezoning or something like that. And so people do have to submit earlier so that we can meet the publishing deadline for the, you know, the newspaper to meet that public hearing requirement. So when in other places, we'll have our normal plan commission items that require the, you know, the month ahead of time submittal. And then we'll have a separate deadline listed specifically for comp plan amendments. That's maybe 45 days, could be 60 days, as the administrator mentioned. Because you do have to meet that specific publishing requirement.
I was gonna make the same comment. I just forgot my own notes. On the red line version under administrative procedure, it highlighted and underlined as a 30-day notice, and I had a comment in here to myself, is this enough time? Do we need to change that to 60 or 90 days? Based upon what the administrator said and the planner said?
That 30-day references the legal publication. So that's what the bolded section there you're talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah, that's the notice of public hearing. That's what the planner was
Oh,
referencing.
okay.
Right, so it's specific from the statute that you have to do a class 1 30-day notice for these, which is unique.
But even with a September deadline, with that 30-day notice, you're looking at a hearing probably in November. That would still, for spring construction, should be plenty of time for developers that are looking to start construction this spring. Or if you do a March deadline, that would be looking at construction during the summer. Or a February deadline.
I wish that everybody was thinking that way and had it all their ducks in a row and did their
That's
their
not,
planning over the winter, but I think what the petitioner is saying, and is my experience, is that, you know, things come up outside of that timeline. And there's no right or wrong answer. Each community is different. I've done,
I mean, construction's pretty much, home construction's done pretty much year round. It's your roads that are,
Right.
that would have their, you know, winter limitation on it. But
yep, I've administered ordinances and comp plans that allow amendments year round. And in other places, they have a similar process to this on the books, and we do it that way. So I'm used to doing it either way. Like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's whatever the community is comfortable with.
It's kind of a hotbed issue because it can look bad by allowing people to make quick comp plan amendments, but there are reasons to do it. The problem is if you you start having to go by burden of proof on it, that's all up to whoever's sitting there. It's not necessarily going to be a consistent thing.
And I guess in this specific instance, the developer had several opportunities to submit.
And I'm not even looking at
Request,
that
so-
because this is, even though this is related to that request, it's not going to, that's one request where this is a much broader issue.
So that's
I-
why I guess if staff could answer the question, how many comp plan amendments do they get each year?
We've done one since I've been contracted by the village, and it was village sponsored. And that was for the Blaze project. That was back in maybe 2020.
So then it really would be a hardship to have a hard deadline.
Well, along with the other things that are on, you may have, staff may be meeting on 5 or 6 different things. Now this is one more additional thing. I understand exactly what you're saying, Sherry, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. I mean, gotta fit this thing in there.
We went 200 years almost with having our hands tied by some other entity telling us when we could and couldn't do things. And now we are gonna potentially tie our own hands intentionally. We fought so hard to become a village.
But now,
Why wouldn't we want to allow ourselves to operate as a village?
but as a village now, we can control our own growth. Whereas we
Right,
were affected.
But now
as a
if we
town.
tie our hands with this comp plan amendment, only doing, I think once a year is definitely out of line. I do, I agree.
I would say every.
I agree with the
do it
petition.
Twice a
100%.
year. That
It's
gives us-
arbitrary, it's an arbitrary number you just picked though. What'd
I
you
just
base
said
that off of?
every 6 months. I just split the year in half.
Yeah,
so
but what'd you base that decision off of? A feeling or data?
I did not have data,
Right, that's what we're doing is. we're all
but I
basing
looked
this
at the
off of feeling.
construction seasons. If you do September planning, I mean, to submit it by September, you're planning for the spring season construction. If you submit it in early spring, you're looking at late
But-
winter, you're looking at summer construction.
But what's the reason for the delay? What would you say is your reason for delaying it?
For having deadlines?
Yeah,
Control of growth.
I
My,
would,
my concern would be allowing it time to go through the system. It has nothing to do with what, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm more concerned about somebody shows up and said, okay, I want this on 40 days from now, I want this on the agenda for a plan commission. And I'm going like,
well, the
your
staff is gonna
homework.
have to control that. I mean, they have to decide what can and can't go on it. I'm looking at grandma gets sick in December and decides to sell her property to a developer and now she's gotta wait another year before they can even get on that process.
no, I think a year is too much. I understand that. I don't have a problem with that.
I don't wanna remove rights from property owners. I know we don't want subdivisions everywhere and all that. I mean, people don't want that. I get that, but we have landowners that consider here too, who actually own the property that do have rights.
But it's not necessarily, I mean, it's not saying they can't sell the land to a developer. It's just if they want to develop it something different than what the comp plan shows.
Sure,
So
but
that's- that-
we weren't good at fixing that comp plan. That's us. These comp plans were set, I mean, the county and then, you know, essentially set the entire north side of the village up as agriculture and that's all it's gonna be. I mean, it's because they wanted a 5 acre density, which was impossible to reach. I mean, we were already at 3 when they set it at 5. I mean, it was an impossible goal to reach. And we didn't do a lot of changing because all we were doing was fighting to become a village. Now we are a village and I'm just concerned that if we continually tie our hands with rules that are old. And I get it, you want to have plenty of notice and it is a little bit of a hotbed issue in that case. But John, you deal with a lot of different communities in this. What is the predominant with villages that you see that they do?
Well, I would say that many of them are in the same position that you're in. If they were part of the consortium when it was written, they have this rule. But those who have looked at it have decided to allow for them anytime during the year. I have to say, those who have looked at the issue, there are still some who are living under the old rule because they haven't updated their plan or had a request to update their plan. But I would think it's more in the villages, since they never have to amend the comp plan. And they can also take as much time as they want to study it. They can table the public hearing, they can, you're required as part of any comp plan amendment, via text amendment or a map amendment, to have a public participation process. And that process could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. You should decide, depending on what the request is, what your public participation process is going to be, if that makes sense. So I don't think timing, there's nothing in the law that says that I recall, and I looked at it a few minutes ago, is that you have to have these decided in 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. It's just the opposite. You're supposed to, whatever time is necessary to get public participation, so everyone's well educated on the request, and then make your decision. So that's a long answer to your question. I would say the villages and cities have granted themselves the authority. One thing I don't think has been mentioned is when this was originally drafted, cities and villages were required to take their comp plan amendments to the county before they could be incorporated, and that was only in January. So it was moot as to when they did them. They weren't getting to the county until January, after the first of the year anyway. But when the county ruled that they had to automatically incorporate the village and cities comp plan amendments when notified of the same, then the cities and villages started to, change the rules. Does that make sense?
So basically you can take as long as you need to.
You can always
do
take
that.
as long as you need to get the appropriate public participation. You can't just, arbitrarily, table. But if you're out gathering data, having informational meetings, things like that, you can take the necessary time to have the appropriate public participation.
For me, I'm just looking at, I wanted the village to have as much authority as it can for itself. I get what you're saying about wanting to delay some of these things, but that we're just delaying to delay at that point. We're delaying an inevitable resolution most likely, and we could be hurting somebody in the process by doing that. Where it sounds like either way, we could delay if needed. But Mark, I don't know if you have any other.
No, I agree. I think, I don't think we should be in the way of this by just holding one a year. I think the process naturally has, like, the council said, it naturally has its own delays built in, but I don't think we should be the ones unnecessarily delaying it. Our staff still is gonna have to put together their time. The legal publications are still gonna have to happen. The public input's gonna happen. And, I don't really see a difference in the process. I just see, government becoming more efficient. It is in Lisbon. It only go one way.
Linda, do you have anything?
No, I kind of liked when Sherry was talking about having the two, excuse me, two dates in the year. I was kind of along with that one. I thought maybe that's a good idea. But if Dan and the office staff can do the work and handle it good, then I think we can just leave it alone and do and let them come in anytime. I don't want to stop a developer either if they're excited about starting stuff. And if the planning commission accepts it and thinks it's a great idea, then that's what we do. I don't know. I don't think we need to. I think we just let it go and they can come in anytime. I think that's best for the town.
Village.
Are you?
That's a quarter.
And monitor.
Bronchitis. I'm so sorry. Yeah, the village.
I do it too.
Yeah, I think.
Mr. President, there's one other comment I should be making. I was kicked under the table. Elisa has long legs. She reminded me that you have made a policy decision in the past that if a person asks for an amendment, now this was the zoning code, you either voted up or down on the amendment, you didn't tweak it. And that's true. And you have done that, and I do recommend that. And so if you are not of a mind to pass what's been petitioned for, you really should deny it and then start over with your own petition to be consistent with your policies. And so I just wanted to, thank you to the clerk for reminding us that has been your past practice. You have a petition in front of you and the request has been made, and so you should really vote to approve it or deny it. The other thing I have to tell you is that the plan commission denies it, the village board does not take it up. It has to be, this is one of the rare instances where it has to be approved exactly the same way by the plan commission and the village board. Since I won't be at the village board meeting, I thought it important to mention that, remind people of that fact also.
Okay.
John, anything else?
But one of the things I was looking at is that what is the usual timeline from start to finish to get one of these projects completed in past history, on an average?
Past history, we had to go through the county, so it was anywhere from 4 to 6 months. In this case, it would just be probably 60 days to, I guess, 90 days, probably that time frame.
And the reason why I'm asking is that I know we go from an annual to partially. Do we just put 3 or 4 dates saying any amendments are required to be on this date on a quarterly or a semi-annual basis? Would that be something that would be possibly considered? That you just say, if you have one of these conditions, that you have to have it in by April 30th for review, which will take whatever time it would be, or July 30th, and we just have that as milestones.
That's what we do now.
But it's just one date, and I know we're either going from an annual to any time. What I'm asking is maybe, is there something in between that it could be on a quarterly saying, okay, instead of the one annual date saying, get it in here, this is the only time, saying that you have maybe 2 dates might be a little bit there, but maybe 4 dates.
I'll be honest with you, Sean, I've been at Lisbon for 4.5 years. I've only had 3 comp plan map amendment requests. It's not something that occurs often.
Right.
I just wanted to comment on some of the guardrails that are still going to be in place regardless of if this proposed amendment goes through or not. So first of all, there's no limit on the number or frequency of amendments that may be made to a comprehensive plan. You have to update it at least every 10 years per state statute, but you can update it more often. The public participation, the public hearing, and the plan adoption procedures that would apply to a full comprehensive plan would also apply to any of the amendments per state statute. So, the class 1 public hearing notice, 30-day that we did, the fact that we're holding a public hearing right now, the plan commission recommendation has to be via resolution to the board, and then a majority of the board has to vote to approve it. So all of that still applies. Even if we allow people to apply more often than we do currently. If this gets denied, all of that stuff will still have to happen if somebody wants to propose a comp plan amendment at any point in the future. So all of that is dictated by statute. We do that now. We'll continue to do that moving forward.
Any other comments before we open up to the public?
If we were to say to come in anytime, would that make people say, hey, now we can do more amendment changes? Would that be, or would that be saying, hey, I could do it anytime, so people can just scratch it, erase and say, hey, I want to do an amendment?
We're still gonna have a planner appointment meeting to try to find out, what it is they're trying to accomplish. There still could be other factors impacting a proposal. Again, the consistency requirement per state statute dictates that the land use match the zoning. So in some cases, somebody may need a rezoning as well, and they would have to also apply for that. There's going to be additional information that we want, in the case of a residential development, as an example, we like to have a conceptual plan of what's being proposed or what's being considered. So that's another step that somebody would have to do. My guess would be that most often it will be the village itself amending its own plan. And again, when you do have somebody coming in for proposed amendments, it will likely be to the land use map, and it will likely be questions regarding density for residential development. There could be instances where somebody proposes to change the land use, and it's not related to residential. Maybe somebody's trying to create an opportunity for commercial development or something to that effect. That's possible too, or maybe mixed use. You just don't know what's going to come in.
Some of these comp plans aren't major. Like you could have 100-acre parcel that you're looking at, and 1/2 of 1 acre on this parcel, which is needed to complete the development, is comp plan zoned differently.
Right.
And you need to change that.
Yeah.
So now you have 100 acres, which are good, for 99.75, which are good, and you've got 1/4 acre that isn't. and you need to do this process, and the way it's currently set up is you could wait an entire year to do that. And there's other times, yeah, it could be the whole parcel, but I mean, even in this instance, it's not a massive update. It's just, okay, when you looked at a map in the past, this little section wasn't thought of, and I just don't want to hold up entire processes for something like that.
But doesn't our current code allow for that? If
You
it's
gotta
a
do a
rare,
plan amendment.
or the compound amendment, if it's a
Yeah.
rare or unusual circumstance, that would fall into that category.
Pretty sure you could very easily say yes or, I mean, that's a very arbitrary thing, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when it came before the board, I mean, you sit here and you're trying to figure out what should and shouldn't be done there, and it's like, in reality, this probably even shouldn't be here.
That's why I like the suggestion of, if we're gonna change the exhibit, rewrite it, and then either include in it or include for the board and the plan commission guidelines, like we're suggested, for our review. Also, or so also the petitioners know what exactly could be entailed.
Comments before we open it up to the public? All right, this time we'll open it up for public comment. If you would step up to the microphone, state your name and address, make your comments. Is there anyone here for this item tonight? I do have,
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak during this public hearing, please use the raise hand function.
I do have an email from Chris and Marilyn McDonald, North 95 West 25929 Rivers Hollow Court. We are deeply concerned by the precedent that today's proposal by Ryan Fritz Newman Developments would set. The existing Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan is currently reviewed annually. After having been formed after soliciting input from countless members of the public, elected officials and representatives, the proposal tonight wants to change this to a more flexible document which can be modified as soon as possible. While the developer lists reasons why this is beneficial to their needs, residents such as us will not have time adequately to review and offer feedback on these changes to the document, which is universally guiding the development of our community. In fact, the agenda was only posted 5 days before this meeting that a proposed change would be considered to the document, which previously was only reviewed once a year in 6 months' time. There's a big difference between reviewing proposed planning commission petitions and a change to the guiding document that the comprehensive development plan, which determines how the planning commission is to respond. Making this document more malleable will reduce citizen engagement and open the door to exception cases to no longer be exceptions, but the norm. Additionally, the board and planning commission members themselves should be the ones to draft and modify this document and then choose to make the changes that help or hinder the applicant. The developer should not only be drafting this document, the developer should not be drafting this document in any way and then asking the board and plan commission to sign off on it. In addition to comments regarding the irregular approach to modifying the comprehensive development plan, including that the 5-day notice is not even compatible with the 30-day notice, which the proposed amendments text states. We also protest the proposed change to this is for the next one, but I'm gonna read it right now. Proposed change to the isolated natural resource area into recreational. Most members of the community that I have spoken with moved to Lisbon out of desire to enjoy the balance between rural and suburban life that it affords. As Lisbon continues to grow in alignment with the comprehensive development plan, more and more rural areas are being developed and areas that were left untouched are shrinking. We should not make any exceptions to the plan which further erode any area designated as isolated natural resource area any further. Thank you for your time and consideration. Anyone else wish to speak right now?
I like,
Hi.
this is Linda.
Lauren
I like
Mullendorf.
what it,
Linda, hang on 1 second, Linda. We're in the public comment section.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
My name's Lauren Mullendor. My address is N65 W26343 Lake Drive, Sussex. I suppose if you go forward with allowing these plans to be made at any time, what does it do to the notification requirement for the public? Right, like, I don't know what this person is referencing, the comment that you just read in for a 5-day notice requirement. But I'm pretty new to this whole thing and being a homeowner in the area and understanding what goes into the comprehensive land use plan. And I guess I would have appreciated knowing before that these were just once a year so that I would know and kind of be on notice. I need to be looking for that. I need to be seeing what's happening so that I can be involved. I feel like I'm a little behind the 8 ball already with some things that have been approved for our neighborhood. And here we are coming in now trying to understand if there's anything that we have to say or do about it. So if you go forward with allowing this amendment that you're talking about to be done at any time, what will that change, if anything, regarding the notification requirements to the landowners in the area?
Does anyone else, who else wish to speak?
My name is Ryan Plato.
Oh, can you wait until you get up on the microphone?
My name is Ryan Plato. I live on North 65 Lake Drive in Stevens. Right next door. And I'd like to say, I hear you guys are doing a lot of talk about community and all that stuff. But have you guys come to think of that our block that is gonna be now a through and through road is changing our community? It is making us all unhappy about it, and we have a lot of people that use that road specifically for their kids and
Are you here?
pets.
So we have the comp amendment plan and we have the next one, which I think is what you're actually
It's
talking
still
about.
about both. I'm also thinking. Now you guys are talking about adding all this new stuff to Lisbon. But that's destroying the beauty of Lisbon. Having all the open land and everything is what makes Lisbon so beautiful. The town of Lisbon was a beautiful place. The village of Lisbon is congested and turning ugly. And I'm not the only one who feels, I know a lot of people who feel like the more that you guys keep building in Lisbon, the uglier it's becoming, the more congested it's becoming, and it's not a rural, nice place anymore. It's not as peaceful as it used to be. And I think that a big part of the community is gonna agree that the peace in the town is disappearing. That's about it.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Back up here then, can you just give an explanation on the notices? Maybe extrapolate on the notice that was given for this too, so we could, everybody knows, it wasn't 5 days.
Absolutely. So the 5-day notice that I believe that email was referring to would be the meeting agenda. We always post agendas for all of our meetings for the village board, plan commission, any of our other committees or boards. Those meetings are generally held on Wednesdays. We publish the agendas on the Friday beforehand. So I believe that that's the notice that they're talking about. As far as the,
I want to clarify that. First, do we actually publish them in the paper? You
Yeah.
use the word publish.
sorry,
Only required to post.
posted on the website as well as the posting board at Village Hall. And the,
To try to do it the Friday ahead, but the law only requires 24-hour notice.
correct,
Of a meeting notice.
correct.
I just want to
Yep.
clear that, because if you have a meeting and you give 24-hour notice, someone's gonna say, well, that's an illegal meeting. It's not an illegal meeting if you give 24-hour notice. Of
Correct.
the agenda of the meeting, but go ahead with the rest of yours.
As far as the notices of the comprehensive plan amendments, those notices were made according to state law. The notice of public hearing for both public hearing 1 and public hearing 2 was dated February 19th and was published as a class 1 notice on February 22nd in the Waukesha Freeman, which is more than a 30 days notice that is required by law. It was also mailed to all of the surrounding property owners within 500 feet of the subject property for public hearing number 2. Because public hearing number 1 is village-wide, we can't do a mailing to every property owner in the village. However, all of the notices are still posted on the website. And they were posted as of February 22nd on the legal notices and public hearings page of the website, as well as all the exhibits. Additionally, the mailings that are required according to state law for any comp plan amendments, those were mailed out on February 24th. And I do have copies of those notices here for anyone that wants to take a look at them.
We got a lot of different requirements and a lot of different things. So comp plan amendments, there's class 1, class 2, different timeframes for everything. It's posted in the paper and nobody reads the paper anymore. I get it, but it is posted on our website also. People are alerted within 500 feet for this one.
Yes.
It's different requirements and everything like that. The comp plan is very different than the zoning code. I mean, the comp plan is what you're looking at in the future. You have a farm field that you think at some point is gonna be a residential, so you put in your comp plan, okay, this is gonna be residential 1 acre density is what you're looking for, so you kind of put restrictions on it that's gonna let you kind of guide towards that. 1 acre density is kind of what we've been pushing in the village, which is different than a lot of other communities. Sussex goes down 1/4 acre, sometimes even less, I think. Other communities, it's whatever they decide. We've taken the stance of being where we want to be less dense. We want to have bigger lots. Kind of to address the next area of the question too is, as far as the development happening in Lisbon, everybody here lived on a farm field probably at one time. We're living where farmers farmed. Farmers are getting old. Farming is not a sought after thing anymore. They have limited options. When a farmer's land is being farmed, their tax rate is very low. As soon as they stop farming that land, that tax rate goes way high. If they can't find anyone to farm it, they will go broke. So they have limited options unless they can find somebody to farm that land. They end up selling it. And they make money on it because that's how that works. When that is sold and that they look at the comp plan, or even in this case where there could be an amendment on it, we have to make a decision as boards, what's gonna happen there. We're shooting for those 1 acre densities. We can't stop people from selling their land and this happening. You can't make them farm it. We can't do that. It's, a lot of people don't like it. They like the animals. I get it. I live next to a quarry. I have a lot of animals and things around me too, but I mean, at some point, that quarry is gonna be 50 feet off my property line. It's how it works. Cause like I said, anyone in the subdivision, that was almost guaranteed to be a farm at one time. And that was developed. It's just that it's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. There's no real good way to stop that. You can make 5 acre densities everywhere, but the problem is when you have services in a community, you have to also have a way to pay for those services. And 5 acre densities, now you've got these big spans between homes and now you're gonna put roads in. Well, now there's something you can't afford as a business. So that's why you gotta have some less densities in a lot of those areas and things, because you have to be able, everything's getting more expensive, you have to be able to afford them. But we are still doing, and I think it'll continue on the 1 acre density minimum, so that's a good thing. I don't know if I missed anything in any of the comments there, but
I don't feel like
we'll have you come up again though. Okay, we'll open up the comments again. Anything else from the board right now at this time? Okay, we'll reopen the comments. You step up and state your name and address again, please. Or not, you don't say your name and address. Just your
Okay.
name, sorry.
I wasn't insinuating that you guys didn't follow the process for the notification process for this. And my question is, if you go forward with this choice to allow amendments at any time, not just once a year, will it change? Because then as a landowner, I have to know that I'm watching around that once a year, then I'm seeing what plan amendments have been approved. Will the notice requirements change at all if you go forward with this amendment to allow these anytime throughout the year? Or will the notice requirements remain the same as what they are right now? And I just need to know, I need to keep an eye out at all times instead of once a year. That's my question.
Anyone else wish to make any comments? Back up here. So
I can respond to that. The notices for that type of thing is required by state law, so that will not change.
what will change though is before these things would only be brought up at one time of the year. Where now if somebody brings it, we would have to notify them. It could be June. It could, depending on what happens here, because I mean, there's different proposals that have been proposed here, but. It could be, okay, in June or July or August, all of a sudden the notice goes out, so people would have to watch. That being said, if you're within a certain range, you will be alerted through a letter. If people read their mail anymore, but all that stuff is kind of changing. So hopefully that answers more of what your question is there. All right. Comments again?
My name is Joan Plato, North 65 West 26307 Lake Drive, Sussex. If you change your notifications to be more than once a year and you mail notifications like some of us received, what determines who gets noticed? You had mentioned 500 feet within property being developed. So does that mean only the people within 500 feet of this proposed subdivision received a notification in the mail? Or did the entire subdivision that will be impacted by this also receive a written notification?
Wish to make any comments? I believe it's 500 feet for this one, and it changes on different notices, as you can extract.
Correct. So what we do, if there is a request for a change on a specific parcel. Trying to figure out a way to explain it. So property owners within 500 feet of the boundaries of that subject property get notified. So if it's for a specific property, like public hearing number 2 is, I select a property on the Waukesha County GIS mapping system, and I create a 500-foot radius. It highlights the properties and downloads all of the addresses and property owners, and that's how I send out my notices.
Yeah, comments from the commission right now?
No.
Okay, any other questions? Sure.
My name is Sarah Krolowitz. I live at N65W26283 Lake Drive. I am one of the ones that received a notice and notified my other residents on the end. You'll see we are the 4 houses on the end of Lake Drive who are here today. I guess I'm curious with your question about the 500 feet, given that this is a substantial change to what we know in our community. And my knowing a community is a little bit different. I've only been there 2 years compared to some of them that have been there 30 years. Given that, I'm curious how many residents based on that 500 feet were actually notified. And given the size of this change, is that something that could be modified in the future? Because I feel that, for instance, I received a notice. Lauren, who lives 2 doors down from me, did not receive a notice. However, she is still impacted by it significantly. Is that something that could be proposed to be changed?
I'll be honest with you, that's not realistic to change that. And
Not our,
it's
state law, I believe.
It's not state law. State law is actually 300 feet. So we go 200 feet beyond that. And the reason that that is not realistic is because you don't know every single property owner in a surrounding subdivision. You don't know who is or is not interested in this project versus the next project. And it's
Creates an undue burden also to mail, so everything costs money. So if you have a small change that there's some certain things nobody's gonna care about, let's be honest. There's little things and there's big things, but the problem is you can't make the law is the law on it. So you have a little thing that all of a sudden, well, this is ridiculous, now you're spending $3,000 in postage to send out to everybody that this is happening, you have to do it every single time. Where we have actually gone from the 300 to the 500 then to alert
Correct.
people. And just to be clear, the 500-foot notice was for hearing number 2, not hearing number 1.
correct for hearing number
So
2.
The hearing number 2 is what the
Mhm.
notice, just so everybody is under the understanding here. It wasn't hearing 1, it's hearing 2. Where that was mailed out. I mean, that's something you could bring back to the board to change that. That's not on the agenda here tonight to discuss, but you could bring that on, that'd be the village board at that time.
Correct. That would be a request to the village board, not to the
Right.
plan commission.
So that could be brought, this commission does not have the authority to do that. But what the question you're asking for that, you could bring that to the village board, which is Wednesday night meeting, and talk to them about it and see if they wanted to change that.
Okay, and the second part of my question was, how many of those letters actually went out?
Well, she counts, also to the chairman's point, we have to remain consistent in what we do. So we can't make a 1,000-foot boundary for one subdivision as opposed to 500 for somebody else, because it opens the door for us to potentially, be inconsistent with certain subdivisions. It just doesn't look good from a municipal standpoint, so.
And I definitely understand that, and I appreciate everyone's explaining and understanding, because we're kind of coming into this a little bit later. So we definitely appreciate you kind of explaining it to us so that we have a better understanding.
This essentially is when people realize what the rules are, when it affects them. There's a lot of these things that go on throughout the village all the time. Problem is, we can't force people to understand what it is, but the second it affects somebody, they're here. And I get that. That's how it is. That's human nature. People come in. And then it's, okay, I didn't know that. Well, yeah, neither did I before I got started on the board. And I get it.
The answer to your question is 23 notices.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kurt?
Sure. Kurt Lesser, W260 North 6157 Brackland Drive. For the people in the audience, I've been involved in this for quite a while. And my advice is pay attention to the notices on the website, because you can view those and decide on whether or not you want to come to the meeting or not. I've been involved in a situation that's still ongoing, and it's been 6 years that I've been dealing with it. So I pay attention to the notices that are on the website. And in my case, I wasn't notified by letter either of a particular case that I was very concerned about. I got involved and I notified all the neighbors in my area, 200 to 250 residences. I went door to door. So those people that do get the notices, I advise them to share that with their neighbors and make sure they're aware of it, because they're going to know that they're concerned about it as well. And just be involved in your village politics, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on here that you should be concerned about. And it's good that you voice your concerns. Thank you very much.
To Kurt's point, we want to hear feedback. People up, I mean, we all live with everybody here. You know, it's some of the worst things. This is actually my final plan commission meeting for the Village of Lisbon tonight. Been doing this for 18 years, and this will be it I have one more board meeting and that's it for me. And it's been a great run. But I'll tell you, some of the hardest things is looking your neighbors in the eye and saying no or yes to something that they absolutely do not want you to say no or yes to. But you know you have to, because it's the law. The one thing we absolutely have to do here is we have to follow the laws of the state. And sometimes those things make decisions very harsh. And it's easy to say, change the law, don't make me make an exception of the law, change the law. But that's, as you can see, this is what we're trying to do here tonight and discuss things. And it can be tough. But it's very hard on a lot of people here when some of these hotbed issues, I mean, obviously the next one's going to be another discussion that we're going to have. But they have to decide based off the law, not off emotion. So, but let me tell you, there's a lot of times I could be sitting up here and it's like, okay, I don't want to make the decision I have to make, and it sucks. But that's what we're bound to do, unfortunately, sometimes. So does anyone else have any further comments tonight for this public hearing? Else from the commission members? Oh. Anything from staff? So we'll close this public hearing then at 7:24. And we'll open the second public hearing then, which is request by applicant Ryan Fritz Newman Developments on behalf of owner Steve Meisner, Hickory Hill Farms, Inc. for an amendment to the land use plan map adopted as part of the Lisbon Comprehensive Plan. The applicant requests that the land use plan be amended from low density residential to secondary environmental corridor and other open lands to be preserved in isolated natural resource area designations to low density residential and secondary environmental corridor, other open lands to be preserved and recreational on an approximately 1.96 acre portion of the southeastern corner of parcel LSBT 0224.999.003. The subject property is generally located along Silver Spring Drive and Mary Hill Road, immediately north of Oswick Ski Hill and east of Lake Drive. Lauren?
Give me 1 second. I'm just going to bring up the GIS map here to share. Okay, unlike our last public hearing and item, this is more project and property specific. We have a petition from Newman Development, Inc. for a proposed amendment in association with the Alpine Hills project. This comprehensive development plan amendment, again, is specifically pertaining to the future land use map. In their due diligence for this parcel, the developer has done, basically hired a environmental professional, Eric Parker. He's out of the Madison area. His company, he's an assured delineator of wetlands, and his company also did, in addition to the wetland delineation for this property, the environmental corridor boundary, and updated that information. And so that's part of the proposal, is to have the new delineation information match the boundaries for those specific land uses associated with that. So the future land use for this property is currently low-density residential, secondary environmental corridor, isolated natural resource area, and other open lands to be preserved. And the proposed future land use is keeping the low-density residential, so keeping the density allowed the same, secondary environmental corridor, isolated natural resource area, and recreational. It is the developer's intent to convey approximately 1.97 acres to the adjacent Ausblick ski hill to allow them to expand their opportunities for off-street parking. The current land use for Ausblick ski hill is PR, which is a recreational type district, and the corresponding land use would be recreational in the comprehensive plan. And so to set the stage for that planned land transfer, they're proposing to change the specific land use for that portion of the site to that specific recreational designation. So again, the updated wetland delineations, corridor delineations, and then the conveyance of that parcel and changing it to recreational are what's precipitating this request. The petitioner has been before the Plan Commission previously for concept reviews for this particular development. They had also previously worked with the county when that was required for preliminary meetings with them regarding this development. There were some previous iterations of this development that would have required rezonings and or a different comp plan amendment that may have changed things further, but they're working with essentially the existing land use and would be coming back for a potential future rezoning. The current zoning is A10 agriculture, and they would be proposing to rezone this parcel to R2, which would be similar to the adjacent subdivision to the west. We've got some proposed conditions in Foth's draft staff review. That this be subject to village board approval of the proposed text amendment to the text of various sections of Exhibit E of the Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan. Obviously, we can't consider this at this time unless the comprehensive plan gets amended to allow us to consider this at this time. Otherwise, it would have to wait until September as the code currently prescribes. Condition 2, subject to the submittal of corresponding rezoning petition within 12 months of the date of approval of the comprehensive development plan amendment. The developer intends to do that. Subject to the approximately 1.97 acres proposed to have a land use designation of recreational being conveyed to the adjoining property to the south owned by Ausblick Inc. Subject to the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission's review of and concurrence with Heartland Ecological Services 2021 Environmental Corridor delineation. Again, Sewer PAC is the Regional Planning Commission for Southeastern Wisconsin. They are the ones who delineate and prescribe and oversee the environmental corridors in southeastern Wisconsin. And so we would just want them to concur with Eric's work. Again, Eric Parker is a very qualified professional. So it would really be just a technical review and again, a concurrence from Sewer PAC, a formality really.
Can you highlight on the map just which portion we're actually, I mean, I have it here, but I mean, just to show the public what this actually is entailing.
So the,
Exhibit.
oh, the exhibit. Yeah, let me bring that up 1 second. Okay, so here's the proposed exhibit for the comprehensive development plan amendment. Shows the areas that are low density residential. Again, that's all staying the same. The secondary environmental corridor boundary is SEC. That kind of is on the west side of the parcel, runs through the property, basically tracks with the waterway that flows through the parcel. You've got a small portion of isolated natural resource area over here in the southwest portion of the parcel, and then a little bit over here adjacent to the Ausblick property. And then this chunk over here is the portion that is proposed to be recreational. Again, this is a parcel that would be created specifically to convey to Ausblick for them to help try to solve their off-street parking needs by creating additional space for that.
Can you highlight which areas are for the comp plan amendment? Like this is just the comp plan amendment is.
It's just that recreational piece.
Right.
Yep, but well, and I would just add that the secondary environmental corridor bit and the isolated natural resource bit would be changing slightly to match the updated delineation that was done in 2021. So that
The
could
area
be,
itself isn't, but it's not much, correct?
it's no, the
So
change is,
essentially this right here.
that's the
is
main
why
change.
we're-
Yeah,
We're asking for a comprehensive plan amendment,
yep, that's,
just so everybody's aware.
that's the main change. So
This is why we're doing this, not that. This, to make it available to Ausblick so they can basically put a parking lot on it. Is what they're doing, correct?
Yep.
So that is the reason for the comp plan amendment on this. It's not the whole thing. It's that.
everything else was pretty much what was needed for the development. Again, those other changes to match the updated delineation, that's basically housekeeping. It either is or it isn't. There's no gray room for whether or not those natural resources exist. Again, the arbiter of that is
And it's actually
is Sewer
expanding
PAC,
them, correct?
in parts.
So this actually comp plan amendment is actually making it a little more restrictive.
In-
With those isolated natural
it-
resource area and other ones.
It's, they're not a static thing, and so they
Right,
they
but I mean,
move,
it's,
but this is just dialing it into what they were, again, at that snapshot in time in 2021, as
which is
opposed
a
to
little
2015, which may have been the most recent information, which was
It's like
from
it's
sewer
bigger
pack.
now, correct?
Yeah, overall.
So actually, this amendment is actually making it a little more restrictive in some areas. It's not big. This is like, I don't want to exaggerate this, like this is huge, but I mean, so it is actually making it a little more restrictive. But the majority of what you see on that map is not affected by what's being discussed here tonight. Just so everybody's aware. Okay. Anything else to add, Orin?
Just that for the land that's proposed to be changed to recreational, that would be conveyed to Ausblick. Ausblick would have to come in at some point in the future and amend their conditional use to incorporate that in their site plan and plan of operation. So there's more steps that will have to be done down the line by Ausblick. Again, this is kind of queuing up an opportunity for them to be able to have that parcel.
Questions from commission? Sean? Sherry?
I don't know, I think he answered my question, was that portion going to be split off from the other parcel and be sold or donated to Ausblick, Ausblick would be the property owner?
Joe?
That was my question.
None.
Mark?
No questions, just a statement. I think that's the best way to explain it is, yeah, it seems like a large parcel that we're changing or developing, but really, if you think about why we're here, it's that small area. And it also makes our community better in the sense that if you know the topography of that land, where the road is, what the problem that's being created by the use of the land just south of here, this increases our public safety at minimal to no cost to all taxpayers.
Anything to add, Linda?
I'm just curious, what on the taxes, because I know the land that's now, from, the Meisner farm, that's now zoned agricultural. And so how does this change because it's being donated to the ski hill? And who pays for that? I mean, that's up to them, I know, but I'm just saying it's gonna be now a taxable property, correct? And
Technically, we don't-
anytime we sell a piece of,
It's taxable or not taxable. Technically, the assessor makes the determination of whether something's taxable or tax exempt, but theoretically, if it's ag now and it's assessed as ag now, and then it's transferred to recreational, it may or may not have an additional value, but they're gonna look at the entire parcel.
yes,
You know, what is a willing buyer and a willing seller willing to pay for the, the
Yeah.
parcel? So and I have no reason, I have no knowledge of what's exempt or not exempt, so I can't say for sure it's taxable. I assume it's probably taxable, but I don't want to make that representation.
oh no, I understand. Thank you, Attorney Macy, appreciate it.
Thank you, Linda. Anything else from staff or anyone in the commission before I open up for public comments? Okay, we'll open this up for public comments. And does anyone wish to speak on this item?
A lot of people.
Do you need my name and address again?
Just your name.
Okay, Sarah Krelowitz, I live on Lake Drive. I understand that this meeting is solely for the recreational portion. I appreciate you explaining that to us. What is that portion? I haven't been able to find it. What is that portion labeled as of now? Is my first question. Moving on from a question, I would ask that the board not agree to this change. I feel that increasing that recreational area and adding a parking lot is going to increase traffic down Lake Drive, which would affect us even more so than this additional subdivision will. I also am concerned that when that parking area fills up, that the residents will then begin to park on Lake Drive. Curious what kind of things would be put in place to either keep that from happening. Or basically no parking signs put up by the sheriff's department, what have you. So again, those are my questions, and I personally would ask that you do not allow this recreational area into the plan.
Does anyone else wish to speak?
Yeah, my name's Joan Plato. You had said that this meeting is only for that tiny recreational portion. I want to know why, since the 500 feet rule exists, none of us were informed when this whole subdivision was apparently approved at some point, I'm guessing. It hasn't been approved. Okay, so then when are we going to be able to speak to the subdivision going in next to us? When is that meeting?
We'll take the comments and then we'll address them.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Lauren again. I mean, I do have a slew of questions, and so I feel kind of silly asking and then sitting back down and then probably having more, but it is what it is. I also was wondering when the entire, I guess I don't understand how, if we're only talking about amending a plan, just this little part, but the whole plan itself has not been approved, so are they only amending their proposal right now? And then the whole proposal itself will be up for approval at some point? That's a question. You mentioned that certain areas are more restrictive. If you could point out or illustrate which areas are more restrictive. And then is there further information that's available to residents or anything about, the wetland corridors? You mentioned this Eric person with Sewer Pack. I don't know what we're allowed as residents to kind of access or find out about what'll happen with those areas. I guess those are kind of my initial questions, because it's.
You end up having more. We get to as long as we need to.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I live right next door to them, and I didn't get a letter either. So I suppose as far as you're saying that this decision, to the hearing that we just closed would decide if you're going to be able to even put this forward or if it has to wait until September. I mean, that's a good thing to keep in mind as far as notifying the residents that we have to keep looking out for this. Then if you go ahead and approve that other thing, to know then, is this piece going to be approved now or have to wait till September? Thank you.
Ryan on Lake Drive. I know you guys, as everyone's been saying, is only talking about that small area. But I would like to know when.
Ryan, can you step up so that you're speaking into the mic for people on Zoom?
I would like to know, when will we all have a chance to talk about the road that will be going through Lake Drive, and when will we have a chance to dispute the road going through Lake Drive? That's a question I'd like to know. And I'd also like to iterate the fact that if that road does get created going through Lake Drive, that is gonna make it more unsafe for people in the subdivision. That area is specifically known to be a safe place where kids go to ride their bikes, where people go to walk their dogs. It is a safe place in the community where everyone knows you can have your kids go and be safe, not get run over by a car. You can have your pets out, not get run over by a car. And then with more roads being put in through there, going through, that's more traffic. We're all gonna have to start putting more locks on our doors, more security systems. Just from the increased traffic, the more likely chance of people trying to break into our homes to steal stuff off of our properties is going to be there. And I'm concerned about the safety for my community, how this is gonna affect everyone on our whole block. And not just our block, the entire subdivision, where everyone's kids come there to play. Everyone takes their pets because it's a safe place. It's known to be safe. I have friends that specifically come out from other areas to my house, knowing that the whole road is safe. No one will ever get hurt.
Just so you know, the comments you're making, we can't address tonight on the road because it's not before us.
Mhm.
Just, you're welcome. I mean, I'm
But
I'm
like,
not
that's
stopping you.
also where
but
I'm
just-
saying,
I'm
I'd
just
like
letting
to
you
know when we have a chance to dispute all
Sure,
this.
and as soon as we bring it back here, we'll explain that. But just so you know, and it's just because it's not on the agenda. We can't talk about that portion tonight, just so.
And I would like to know when that would be on the agenda.
Sure. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? All right, we'll bring it back up here. As far as the time, I don't know what the timeline is for the next. If they've even brought it forward for,
They haven't submitted an application for rezone yet. So once it happens, then we'll send proper notice, get the 500-foot notices, publications in the paper, slightly different than the comprehensive plan because the 30-day notice requirement for comp plan, this would be a 14-day notice in the paper for a rezone. So that's when you'll know.
so the process for doing a rezone is different than a comp plan. So there's gonna be 14 days notice required for that. That's 2 weeks. The comp plan is bigger because it's usually involves bigger things. This just happens to be a really small comp plan amendment. This involves a parking lot. Is essentially what it's gonna end up going there. This subdivision is not dependent upon this comp plan amendment, I don't believe. It's just, this is a donation that's happening to Osblick. And there has to be a comp plan amendment to do this because it was never thought that this was ever gonna happen. So this is actually something nice the developer is doing for Osblick. The problem we have on Mary Hill Road is right now, a lot of people park on it that are going to the ski hill. They shouldn't be there. It's not safe. So this is to try and bring that down by putting parking there. I don't know, is there any talk about that attaching to Lake Drive? I mean, I think this is gonna be right into Osblick's parking lot. Just existing parking is what I'm assuming.
I don't recall their
I
site.
mean, it hasn't been
layout.
brought forward to us yet.
It has not, but
So we're
that is the
extrapolating
intent.
at this time.
Conceptually, the plan is that it would only connect to the Ausblick property and the driveway that exists on Mary Hill Road. There would be no connection from the proposed future parking lot expansion to the subdivision to the north.
So it's extending, it's basically expanding a parking lot, but not granting it another access point, most likely. Again, it's not
Correct.
in front of us here, but sounds like that's the intent here.
Conceptually, that was the idea.
It's just to offer more parking to get people off of Mary Hill.
We won't know until Osblick makes a submittal.
But if the subdivision does come forward and there are talks about on Lake Drive, as far as I could see people potentially parking, that's something to talk about probably in a planner meeting there, just to see what could be things that have to be addressed on that.
Correct.
So we do not know when the zoning change is going to come before the board. This is where we have notifications. If you log into our website, there's spots where you can go and you will receive a notification for, you could set it up for any zoning any zoning change in the village where you would get tell you that. To let you know. But
I would suggest you can go onto the town website, or village website, and ask for notification for any plan commission meeting, any village board meeting, any of the committees. You can sign up to get, and they will notification, and it'll notify you that an agenda has been put out on the website. And like she said, that usually happens on the Friday before the Wednesday meetings. And that way you'll see the agenda, you'll see our entire packet will be out there.
be another meeting just like tonight. Back and forth, might be some different faces here, but it'll be back and forth and
And anyone who has issues finding something on the website, or if you're not computer savvy, call me at Village Hall. I'm happy to email it to you or send it to you in the mail.
there was a question on which areas are more restrictive. Could you had it all ready to go?
He's got it up.
So
Yeah, I just brought back up the exhibit for the comprehensive development plan amendment, which does include in the background, it's a little hard to see, but it includes the conceptual layout of the subdivision where potential lots could be. And the areas that are secondary environmental corridor through the middle, some of the upland stuff, some of the woods associated with that might end up on properties, but the majority of it is going to be in outlot areas.
Or, and I think the question is probably clarified, they're wanting to know what it is now versus what.
So that particular area that's going to be recreational is currently the low density residential.
So that's becoming more restrictive now. Granted, it's a parking lot. People may not think that's better, but it actually it will become more restrictive if this happens. And then these look like they grew a little bit maybe,
Is there a way to,
but it's
put-
very minute.
is there a way to put the current comp next to the proposed? I think that's what their question is trying to address.
Have the current one here. I can. Area, here's the specific corner of the parcel that we're talking about. And this
It's
is,
hard to see, but there's a little bit there. Where
this is the recreational area for Ausblick down here. This is where that secondary environmental corridor runs through the parcel currently. These white areas are the other open lands to be preserved, which is an unknown, if you will, on our land use plan. If there aren't restrictions found there, then it reverts to the adjacent future land use. So if there aren't wetlands there, if there aren't soil restrictions there, it reverts to the adjacent land use, which would be the low density residential.
biggest one is the recreational, and then there's some little minute ones on there. They're very small. It's very small changes. The wetland corridors, there's a question asked about that.
I think one of the questions was, just again regarding Eric Parker. Eric Parker, works for a private company, Heartland Ecological Services out of Mount Horeb. He is a professional wetland scientist. He's an assured wetland delineator, through the WDNR. He's been at this a long time. He was hired by the developer to delineate wetlands on the property and to delineate the environmental corridor on the property. You may wonder why somebody would hire a professional to do that, because it can happen a lot faster than if you wait to have the DNR do it. And because he's an assured delineator, it means the DNR accepts his delineations without having to concur and review them. Sewer PAC doesn't have that same sort of program in place, and so that's why we have our condition for them to still concur with his environmental corridor delineation. But for the wetland component, they will accept what is submitted without having to concur with it. I think there was a question about amending the proposal, as far as, will the developer be amending this proposal in the future? So the way that a residential development works, again, we first look at what's the prescribed land use in the comp plan, and is the proposed zoning going to be consistent with that? In this case, to accomplish all of the goals of this, they're proposing the amendment that they are tonight to the comp plan. That always happens first. Sometimes all the aspects of the project come in together and we have all of those discussions concurrently at one meeting. In this case, they started with the comp plan amendment. So they will come back for a proposed rezoning to rezone from the A10 to R2. That'll require another public hearing. And they'll also come in for, at some point, a preliminary plat. Those aren't required, again, to be at the same meeting. They may happen at different meetings, but when the proposal for the rezoning comes in, there will be a conceptual plan associated with that will have more detail than what's in front of you here for the exhibit. Again, some of the information from the concept plan is essentially on this exhibit. It's hard to see, but the proposed layout of the streets and the lots is on here. It's just
But that could change.
under that could change. Again, this is conceptual. We're not holding them to that. So the conversations around the subdivision and the layout of it will happen really at the preliminary plat meeting. And again, the plan commission makes a recommendation to the village board. The village board gets final approval or denial authority over preliminary plats. Same is true of rezonings and comp plan amendments. So this body is only recommending on all three of those issues. And tonight, we're only considering the comprehensive development plan amendment portion.
Essentially, watch the agendas, set up one or two people who are point people who have everybody's email address. You need a Kurt is what you need. You need somebody that's gonna let the rest of you know, maybe a couple people that can alert everybody, this is what you want to come in for and talk about. Form a network between you. That was it. We'll open anything from the commission at this time. We'll open it back up for any comments. Again, from the public. Does anyone have any comments they wish to make? Any- No? Anyone on Zoom?
If anyone on Zoom would like to comment on this public hearing, please use the raise hand function. No one.
All right, last call for anyone wishing to make any more comments in this public hearing tonight. Public hearing then at 7:56. All right, I think this is the regular portion of our plan commission meeting, which is item 3, which is citizens' comments. Does anyone have any comments for anything on the agenda tonight? Or anything in general? Anything on Zoom? Not limited to the public hearings, is anything? Okay. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the February 26, 2025 public hearing and plan commission meeting. The minutes in front of us. Any comments or questions, or is there a motion on the minutes? Thank you, Linda. Have a motion on the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes from February 26th as presented.
Moved by Brian, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sherry. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimous. Item 5, new business, A, discussion necessary action on the request by Ryan Fritsch, Newman Developments for proposed text amendments to various sections of Exhibit E of the Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan related to annual review of plan amendments, out-of-cycle requests, and minor corrective and technical updates, and adoption of Resolution 2025-02 to recommend to the village approval of the same. Okay. So we have what's in front of us. We have it has been past practice to not modify anything. So we need to discuss whether this is as it is, or if we,
I'll make a motion to recommend to the village board approval of comprehensive development plan amendment request for Ryan Fitch as presented.
there's
And
second,
adoption of the resolution. They adopt an ordinance, so you can make the recommendation, but you have to adopt a resolution as part of that.
Oh,
Just add and adopt the resolution.
and adopt the resolution.
Thank you.
the motion has been made. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Brian, discussion? Discussion? Sean, anything? Sherry?
I still think we need some deadlines. Or that we need to rewrite the exhibit ourselves.
Joe, anything?
No.
Brian? All right. Discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1, 2, 3. Passes 4-1. Thank you. Item B, discussion necessary action on the request by applicant Ryan Fritsch, Newman Developments on behalf of owner Steve Meiser, Hickory Hill Farms, Inc. for an amendment to the land use plan adopted as part of the Lisbon Comprehensive Plan to change the land use designation on approximately 1.96 acre portion of the southeastern corner of parcel LSBT 0224.999.003 from low density residential, secondary environmental corridor, and other open lands to be preserved to recreational, and adoption of resolution 2025-03 to recommend to the village board of the same. Any discussion on this? Anything for you, Sean?
Good.
Sherry?
No comments.
Joe?
We haven't heard anything back from Sewer Pack, correct?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's normal.
No, I have nothing.
So passage of this would obviously be dependent on if the village board would decide not to pass the last item, this would then become a moot point.
Correct.
So this is not a done deal. This will also go to the village board meeting, the next one. And if the board does not pass the last resolution, 02, if this resolution is passed, this would not be allowed to pass at that time. Just so everybody's under the understanding.
Correct.
Right. Is there a motion on this item? Any other discussion? Motion to approve or deny, we need something.
I'll move to approve. Let's see.
I'll second.
Moving to approve the entire item, including resolution 2025-03, Brian,
Yes, along
As
with
we're-
planner comments.
and recommendation of the village board are the same?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And the
Yes,
second is an agreement with that?
Right.
Okay. Discussion, any final discussion, anything, Sean? Sherry? Joe?
None.
Brian? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries 5-0. So that will then go, those two items will definitely go to the next village board meeting, which should be April 9th. Item C, discussion necessary action regarding the request by Chad Allmiller for approval of a 3-lot certified survey map to divide the parcel located at the West 220 North 8991 Town Line Road, LSBT 0148.999. The applicant is here, I'm assuming.
Yes.
You're starting off.
Yep. Just getting this GIS map updated, shared for the folks online. Give me 1 second. Yep. Okay, we have a proposal by Chad Allmuller for a proposed certified survey map. 3-lot CSM. This is in the northeast portion of the village off of the terminus of Elmwood Road. Portion of this parcel also abuts Town Line Road. The proposal, again, if you look at the certified survey map in your packets, would be to create 3 lots. Lot 3 would be reserved by the property owner for a development site for a future home for himself. Lots 1 and 2 would be for sale. And the area has a lot of natural resources on it. If you look at the zoning map, you can see the C1, also the shoreline zoning boundary. There's a kind of the upper reaches of the Fox that goes through this area. There was a wetland delineation that was done. If you look at the certified survey map, the details for that are on that one of the pages of that document. I think if you look at sheet C1.01, C1.02, that information is on those sheets. So we've got a lot 1, a 5-acre lot, lot 2, another 5-acre lot, and then lot 3 being the remnant portion, which is 57.56 acres. If you look at both staff review, the proposal is, as far as the size of the lots, is consistent with the AD 10, which requires a minimum area of 1 acre and a 10-acre density. So you can have lots as small as 1 acre as long as you have an overall 10-acre density. So it's different than the A10, which requires a minimum of 10-acre parcels. The AD10, you can have parcels smaller than 10 acres as long as your overall density works out so that there's 10-acre density. So the Heartland Ecological Group, again, did the wetland delineation. There's 4 total wetlands, about 18 acres of the site. There's a sewer pack identified preliminary environmental corridor. As far as the density standards that were looked at, there's a certain prescription in the code for how that gets calculated. The overall calculation for this yielded the potential for 4 lots. So because there are 3 lots being proposed, there's a remaining development right for a lot that's out there. There's a page of the CSM that shows a potential future lot in the far northeast corner of the site. Again, this would be off a town line. If you look at C 1.02 in your packet, it shows a future lot 4 being a 5-acre lot. So that would be the remaining development right and the sort of at least conceptual thought of how that could come to fruition in the future. We're prescribing that lots 1 and 2 may not be redivided under the current AD 10 zoning, that there be a note to that effect placed on the CSM, and that one remaining development right for a 5-acre lot is located on lot 3 under the current AD 10 zoning, that note also be placed on the CSM. Again, just to memorialize these things moving forward to hopefully help make it easier for folks in the future. There is as part of this proposal, a plan to put a permanent terminus via a cul-de-sac at the end of Elmwood Road. We talked about these a lot lately, as we did with the Horn property at our last meeting. So in this case, the proposed cul-de-sac would be built to the village specifications. There's a neighboring parcel that exists. It's lot 1 of CSM 5294. And if you're looking at the screen, it is the one that I'm circling with the cursor. It's in the middle of the existing property, and it has an access easement out to Elmwood Road. And the proposal is to amend that access easement so that it will incorporate the proposed lot 2 on it as well. And that existing lot and proposed lot 2 would share a driveway for a portion of lot 2. And then there would be so it would essentially be the same situation they currently have. It would just reflect the new layout of the CSM and a potentially new property owner for lot 2. So there's a recommendation in both staff review that the petitioner submit a separate written shared driveway easement agreement for review and approval as to form by the village attorney and village engineer prior to its recording, along with the certified survey map. Just to make sure that happens to create that opportunity for that lot. Again, it's an existing lot. It's landlocked. It doesn't have frontage on any right of way. And we just want to make sure that it continues to have access moving forward. The petitioner again is present if there's any specific questions for them or for myself or the village engineer.
Wanted to address Mitch?
There are several comments on the CSM itself, the instrument itself that they need to address. There's missing legal descriptions and signature pages that need to be included along with some technical items that we noticed on the CSM itself.
Mitch, I got some questions for you. First of all, looking on the draft CSM, old lot 1 of CSM, if I can read it here, 5294, where is their access?
It's better represented on one of the plan sheets. I don't know if Warren could pull that up. It's plan sheet.
Yep, if you bear with me a second, I'll pull that up.
C1.01.
That little line that kind of goes like that.
That's what I'm wondering. Where
Here.
the heck?
It does follow
right here.
It does follow that strip somewhat. It kind of meanders off the corner of it, but they're going to rewrite that agreement to make sure it's incorporated within that lot too.
So they're gonna be party to this new driveway.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And there was discussions, according to the applicant, they've discussed this with that property owner
Okay.
already.
Next question is, this new cul-de-sac.
Yep.
Somebody's putting that in and that will be dedicated to the village, correct?
That is correct. And we
Okay.
are working on a developer's agreement for that, as we speak. Making sure that the proper language is in there and that we have some type of surety in place.
Okay, the old turnaround or cul-de-sac, or whatever the heck is on Elmwood Road, they are also going to restore that?
The old turnaround. That will be incorporated within, yes, they'll restore that roadway area. It's not much of a turnaround there, really.
Okay, but I
Yeah,
just,
yes.
I don't want that property owner coming back to us saying, why didn't you fix that? Cause, okay.
Yep.
So Elmwood Road will be extended into this overall parcel. They will construct and dedicate a new cul-de-sac. Okay, think that's it then.
Okay.
I've got the specifics regarding the easement location and the existing driveway up.
I just want to make sure the old turnaround or whatever the heck is what the village's plows have been turning around to all these years is gonna be fixed and redone. There'll have to be an agreement, obviously, between this property owner and that property owner to work on their property.
Elmwood Road just goes straight. There is no T turnaround, cause the end of it is a driveway. So there is no T at the end.
Okay, as long as they restore that. And then, is there a timeline on the construction of this cul-de-sac?
That'll be part of the development agreement. Yeah.
I could see it be done this construction season, so we can turn a plow around.
State your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Chad. The address would be the end of Elmwood,
Last name too, please.
Paul Miller. I guess to specifically answer your question in regards to the cul-de-sac, I would prefer to do all the site prep this year and pave it next year. If we were forced to do the paving this year, we could. But, I mean, I think there's a big argument.
My concern is just that it's suitable to turn a plow around in January.
Sure, so right now,
If you don't pave it till next year,
Well-
personally, I'm not concerned about that. I wanna
Okay.
make sure there's gravel on there, they can turn a plow around.
yeah, well, right now the plows don't turn around in there, cause there was a utility easement or a T that was approved in 87, but it never happened. The neighbor to the south actually has an easement that allows the plow to turn around in their driveway, and that doesn't affect this development. So the plows have been turning around in someone else's driveway already. They would no longer have to do that.
Okay, as long as things are done in the developer's agreement in a timely manner, that we're not sitting here a year from now wondering when the cul-de-sac's gonna go in.
No, yeah, I mean, I would prefer to do the site prep this year. We've already been talking to asphalt companies. Build the house this year, pave both my driveway and the asphalt next year on the road.
I
And
understand.
then everything would settle. I'm in agreements with you on that,
Okay,
so.
that's fine, as long as that's all in the developer's agreement, because
I've got up on the screen where the existing kind of turnaround
I see that.
is located in relation to the proposed cul-de-sac.
Okay. I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
No problem.
Sean?
No, because this intersects at North Lisbon and Town Line is where, pretty much, okay. The only other thing, I know that you're probably, looking with the, wetland, because that whole area from Tamarack and that whole northeast they've had water issues, and I'm assuming that everything will be taken care of.
Evan Nicodem, 122 Wisconsin Street in West Bend with Paris Survey and Engineering. And the answer is no, we're not doing anything with any of the wetlands or floodplain or waterway on the north side.
Yeah,
No
'cause-
impacts.
I know, because of Tamarack from 50, years ago, they've had drainage issues and whatnot, and it's, it's.
Would only note that there is going to be a developers agreement and the developers, correct? This is Dan, right?
Yep.
Yep, and it's been drafted, a draft has been prepared, and that will set forth when this all has to be done. They may decide as part of the developers agreement, he can't get a building permit for lot 2 until the cul-de-sac. They may decide he can't get a building permit for any of them until the
I
lease
was
is
just gonna say,
graded.
you can't get one for lot 1 either.
Well, I'm just saying, they may say it has to be graded, so I don't know how we've written it. Usually,
We haven't changed that language.
yeah,
so-
usually you can't get a building permit until the first lift of asphalt's on the road. That's a pretty standard provision. Now, this is a simpler developers agreement and he can try to negotiate that with the board. But you've made the point and, I think the message, certainly Dan will take that message back to the village board that the plan commission wanted that looked at.
Thank you.
Condition 4 states that, subject to the petitioner submitting to and receiving from the village attorney and village engineer approval of a developer's agreement for all public improvements prior to commencing construction of any public improvements or site development.
They have to enter into it and then they have to obey it. Simple.
See, Doug?
Anything else you want to add? Did have one additional question though. Do we need to plat the entire property or can we just plat the 2 lots, lot 1 and 2 as they currently are shown? Rather than the entire property, because I don't know that the rest of the property should be able to remain unplatted. So we prefer just to do a 2-lot certified survey map with the dedication for the turnaround, of course.
We changed that within the last 2 years, I know, about how big that remaining parcel's gotta be that require it be included in the CSM. We went through all that.
Yep.
I
So
remember.
staff specifically request, the original proposal for this was for a, essentially a 3-lot CSM with a little different configuration, but it excluded most of what's being shown as lot 3, what I consider the remnant portion of the property, if you will. I specifically requested that all be included because this is AD 10 and the yield of lots is based on the whole site. I wanted the big picture of what was gonna happen in the future potentially and wanted to see the whole thing
Yes.
as part of this. And so now we have, the area in the northeast that's part of this and conceptually that is where the 4th development right could be located, for a 5-acre lot that would have access to Town Line Road. Now we know all that as part of including this as a lot of the CSM as opposed to only showing part of it and then exempting the rest of it. So procedurally, there would have to be a waiver to allow them to exclude that portion. That's not on the agenda, that's not before the Planning Commission, and so you can either approve or deny, recommend approval or denial because it's the board that gets to decide, but you can recommend approval or denial based on what you have in front of you. But there is no waiver request on the table.
The other thing I'd point out to you is people have tried to do that. You have to do the legal description of the remainderment in order to preserve that development right. Because we can't put the development right on lots 1 and 2. We have to put that, and that's an important right. That someday that may be able to be divided in a separate building pad. And we can't give it to lot 1 and 2. They don't meet the size. So you'd end up having to do a legal description to put the development right as a deed restriction on that lot anyway. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about the cost. I'm sure that's one reason you didn't want to do lot 3, but hasn't it already been platted?
Yeah, no, it hasn't been platted where that's what this process is all about. But no, the only thing that would hold us up is that we would have to wait 5 years in order to do that CSM. If so, Mr. Amuler would have to wait 5 years in order to divide off something in the future, you know, and he doesn't have a timeline, but
Why is
is it-
that? What
because
code
you
says-
can't replat things within 5 years, right?
Create more than so many lots, or you have to
Right.
do a subdivision.
Okay,
You can always do it, but you have to do a full subdivision.
but you can, yeah, you just can't do CSM after CSM after CSM. That's what that.
Can up to 4 generally.
Yeah.
And then there's also size requirements too, so that might end up,
Okay.
and you have larger lots here, so I don't think that would.
Yeah,
Good.
I
All right.
think
And I
you're,
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
All right.
No, we
good.
can, and check with, you know, I don't want to say that unequivocally, Mitch and I are commenting, but you have to check the definition of subdivision and you find out, you know, that it may not apply.
And it would still be a CSM. It wouldn't be a subdivision per se, but, right.
No, but to come back and do the second, we have redivision of large parcels, as long as they don't create more than 5 in the 4 years, usually of the mother parcel.
And yeah, and we wouldn't be able to do that regardless. So, okay. All right, good. We're good.
okay.
All right.
All the questions.
Rather ask them now than 3 years from now.
Any other questions, comments?
I'll make a
Joe?
motion to approve the CSM as presented and recommend to the village board and including the planners and engineers' comments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded for everything. Staff's good with that motion?
Yep.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Item D, discussion only regarding the request by Jamie and Tracy Noble for conceptual review of a proposed minor land division for the property located at North 72 West 26488 Esker Lane, LSPT 0212.996. All right, the applicants.
Yep, just pulling up the.
Jamie Noble, N72W26488 Esker Lane.
Tracy Noble, same address.
Orange just pulling up the submittal.
Those are the concepts.
The computers behave, isn't it?
Okay. I've got the concept up here. If I could just go through my staff review quickly. So again, this is a concept plan review. There's no action being requested tonight, just feedback from the plan commission for the benefit of the petitioner. So Tracy and Jamie Noble own a 40-ish acre parcel at the end of Esker Lane. This is currently zoned A10. A small portion of the property is A10 where their current home is. A lot of C1 and then some UCO corridor. We'll transition here to the zoning map so you can see that. So again, the A10 is where the existing single-family residence is located on the property. The upland corridor is the dark green area. And then the rest of the property is the C1, which is the wetland. The wetland and upland corridor are associated with a primary environmental corridor on the property. And then there's low density residential as well, corresponding to the area where the current home is located. And so the proposal is to create a second lot with a potential building site that would be approximately 30 acres. And the existing home would end up on a lot that would be approximately 10 acres. And so on this image, you can see the line for the 10-acre lot that's proposed. And then the 30 acres would be the rest of the property. It's my understanding, I'll defer to the petitioners, that you would like to, the development area for a new home would be for you to build a new home for yourselves, and then you would sell the 10-acre parcel and keep the 30-acre parcel, is that correct?
At this time, yes, we
Okay.
would stay on the property for 30 acres.
Conceptually, we won't hold you to that.
Conceptually.
Yep, we won't hold you to that.
Conceptually.
Okay, so the, again, the proposed layout would be consistent with the A10 district, which requires minimum 10-acre lots. The comprehensive plan is low-density residential, so 10-acre lots is well above what's allowed for that. The issue of access probably takes up the most space in my staff review. So the only available access to this property is to Esker Lane. Access to the second proposed lot would be via a proposed 30-foot wide driveway easement. Allow me to zoom in momentarily on our exhibit. Okay, and now you can see the proposed estimated path of a 30-foot driveway easement. The zoning code has some very specific rules about, you know, what can be done via access easements. The lot would have to be at least 3 acres. It exceeds that. There's specific requirements for the size of the easement. It would actually have to be at least 33 feet. There would have to be at least 12 feet of paved or gravel driveway. So a lot of requirements of when and how this can be done. Looking at the road stub of Esker Lane, it's located within the Thousand Oaks Addition Number 2 subdivision. If that sounds familiar, it's because we just recently talked about the Thousand Oaks Addition 1 subdivision at our previous meeting when we were talking about the Horn rezoning. So this is a further addition of that same subdivision, just a little north of the Horn parcel that we were previously looking at, and just a little north of Edgewood, which we were previously looking at. Much like Edgewood, Esker ends without a permanent terminus currently. So the plat itself for Thousand Oaks Addition Number 2 doesn't depict any temporary cul-de-sac easements on the parcels on either side of Esker Lane. The Plan Commission should determine whether to require a permanent terminus, for example, a T turnaround or a cul-de-sac on Esker Lane. I've got an image, you know, a zoomed in image in the staff review of the aerial photo of the area from the zoning map on Waukesha County GIS. You can see the petitioner's home at the end of Esker Lane in the A10 area. You can kind of see the parcel on the north side of Esker Lane there, zoned R1. There is a driveway on the parcel to the north that kind of loops around. Again, we spent some time talking about temporary cul-de-sac easements the last time we talked about a terminus like this. In this case, those don't exist. So then I have a snip of the Thousand Oaks Addition Number 2 subdivision plat in the packet, just so you can see how that looks on the plat itself. The other thing I wanted to bring up would be the environmentally sensitive areas. So again, the majority of the property is located within a primary environmental corridor, with the exception of that small area of A10 immediately surrounding the Noble's existing single-family home. The potential building site is located within an area zoned UC Upland Corridor District. according to section 9A of the zoning code, the upland corridor district essentially is to protect and preserve certain environmental features, and the code allows, it states that for parcels that lie partially within and partially outside of an upland corridor, which would be the case for this parcel, the area of disturbance shall be limited to that area outside of the upland corridor unless otherwise permitted by a building envelope on the certified survey map, subdivision plat, or other document recorded in the Waukesha County Register of Deeds office. That same portion of the code says that if you have a property that's entirely within the upland corridor, that you can disturb about 30,000 square feet of area for a building footprint to allow reasonable use of the parcel to have a single family home. Yeah. That's if it's entirely within the upland corridor. Again, there's a second scenario which pertains to this parcel, which says that essentially you should locate outside of that area that's upland corridor if possible. So the existing home in this case is, but the proposed potential building site is within the upland corridor portion.
That clause, to interrupt, or, so that would apply, it would allow them 30,000 square feet of disturbance.
No, those details are in the portion for the lot that's entirely within upland corridor to create a reasonable use of that lot for a single family home to allow that footprint area. This is saying that the area of disturbance should be limited to that area outside of the upland corridor unless otherwise permitted by a building envelope shown on the CSM. So
That one or not?
if approved by the plan commission,
Oh,
it's saying you should locate outside of the corridor unless otherwise approved by a building envelope. So
Literally nowhere to do that.
Orin, can you explain what the blue is on this map compared to the C1? Because the C1's not matching up with the blue that's here. If you look at the zoning map.
I'm guessing the layer that was turned on here is the environmental. Well, I
It's
can't-
soil types.
Oh, it's soil. Okay.
So, yeah, so if you look at the C1, that building
Yeah.
envelope closes pretty quickly, and that home would be either within or within 1 foot of the C1.
Yeah, if I go back to the GIS here, you can see there's this narrow area of upland corridor that comes through. So the idea, this is, essentially a ridge line, right?
Yes.
The high ground,
It's
if
a-
you will,
Glacial eskers.
Yep.
Hence esker.
hence the name. So the ridge of the esker here is the desired potential development site from the concept plan.
So you're recommending that an envelope here or not?
I'm telling you that the code allows you to do this, but the first thing it says is don't do it. Do it in another area of the site. And then it says, but it can be approved by an envelope by the plan commission on a certified survey map.
If there is a building envelope allowed, they're restricted on their property around the house as to what they can do, because it's upland corridor, aren't they? Or up.
Yes, so
So if they'd want to, an example, if they'd want to put in a pool, they probably would not be able to.
well, the idea is you're supposed to limit the disturbance to
Right.
that building footprint area, and whatever you're gonna do is supposed to be within that. But the point I was trying to make is, if this property was entirely within upland corridor and it didn't have a house on it, the code says you should be able to at least have a single family house to be able to have a reasonable use of the property. This property has a single family home on it that's located outside of the upland corridor. For properties that have some corridor on it and other areas that are outside of the corridor, it says develop outside of the corridor,
Can't because it's C1.
but they already have a home. So the UC, again, if you're entirely within the upland corridor district, it allows you to create a site for a home. They're asking for a site for a second home and to create a second lot. So the
But
code.
if you create a second lot, in there, it's no longer a home on that lot. So that's really what we're looking at that point, correct? The existing home becomes a moot point at that time. And then we're looking at the fact that there's UC and C1 on it, but you can't build on C1, you can only build on C, so we're using. Basically, we're looking at, our code wasn't really designed for this scenario, but we're trying to determine whether or not we should allow this to go there or not.
Well, I think it would have been the county that dealt with this back when this original house was
That matters
built.
At this point, though, it's what do we,
No,
that's essentially what
but-
we're looking at though, right?
Yeah, so the
We're
things,
gonna use common sense and look at this, or we're gonna.
the things that I point out are again, access. Is the plan commission amenable, given the current state of Esker Lane in allowing essentially a shared driveway to a second lot without a permanent terminus to Esker Lane? Are you okay with a second lot being created on an access easement? And are you okay with a building footprint for a second home within the upland corridor on this site? Those are the
Building
things
fir-
to consider.
First is the building envelope, because if we don't want a building envelope there, none of the rest of this is, it's all a moot point.
Right. Trying to figure out how to make this work. My concern is if we create a building envelope for a second home, kind of going through the language that Orange states, coupled with some type of a turnaround, that's what I'm concerned about. We're trying to put 3 pounds of stuff in a 2-pound bag. I'm trying to figure out how to get this to work.
The access will also impact the upland corridor. Because
Right.
the
I think that's
access
his
is
point.
going through the same upland
Right.
corridor.
Right.
Right.
There's gonna be a lot of
We're-
impact to the upland corridor.
So the 12-foot, it's a 33-foot easement, 12 feet of that needs to be
Pavement.
paved or gravelled. But then you need, usually there's some shoulder area, if you will.
Or does the C1 have a setback requirement where you have to build up 75 feet from C1, or is it wetland?
So the wetland setbacks are for structures from wetland. So as far as a driveway, you would just need to be outside of the wetland. for that.
But for structures, there is a 75-foot setback for structures,
50.
not 50. And is that for C1 or for wetland?
That's for C1.
So 50 feet, you're not gonna, that whole entire piece that juts out is 100. So you can't put a building anywhere in that. So it would have to be abutted to that A10 zoning parcel. So you can basically cut out that peninsula, I guess, that sticks out.
Is one way of doing this, if we create 2 lots. The first lot would contain the existing residence. The second lot would be vacant, and the only building area that would be available would be entirely in UC. Then wouldn't that statement apply then, because we give them a building pad within that upland corridor on that second lot?
Yes, and what Dan just said is that
Not big enough.
if that building pad goes there, it wouldn't meet the setback requirements of the C1 district.
Okay, that's, okay.
But also you're talking about allowing a second lot. And again, there is a reasonable use of the property. There is a single family home on it.
How can we make this work?
We got a plan commission here looking for a recommendation on whether or not this can happen.
Yeah, because
To be quite honest with
I don't
you.
recommend on concept reviews.
Yeah,
I
because
just
if
provide
you-
the facts.
If you make another lot, then you're making a lot that's not compliant with our code, period. Doesn't matter if the house is there now, because it is compliant the way it sits, but if you make the other lot, it's a non-compliant lot to our ordinance. Am I looking at it wrong?
So you're wondering if the second lot would be in compliance with the ordinance because of the C1?
Correct.
That portion of it? So You would be creating a situation where only the C1 area of it would be developable, yes. Because, I'm sorry, only the C2 portion, only the upland corridor portion would be developable. The C1, the wetland, you can't do anything and you can't build within it. So you're creating a situation where they would have to impact the upland corridor, yes.
But the upland corridor is not big enough to put in a building envelope.
Maybe not the exact
At that proposed
portion
spot,
is,
maybe
is,
not,
it was
no,
Dan's
but-
point, but there's likely a spot that would work. And then it's a matter of, do you want to allow a building footprint to entertain that scenario?
So I guess you don't do a recommendation on this, but
Right.
we need, like, if it isn't possible to put one there, this is a moot point. If it is possible to put one there, looking at like where it could go and does it make sense? Kind of like, we're like trying to negotiate this while we're sitting here right now, which I hate doing.
Well, it's possible, yes.
Okay.
It's possible to create another lot here. The question is, do you want to? So normally we would require a permanent terminus of Esker Lane. And because it currently dead ends, right?
Yeah, so with that being said, I have a feeling once you create a permanent terminus, you're gonna impact the existing home that's there as well. So it won't meet the required setbacks, and unless we really had all those exact measurements, we won't know that for sure, but I have a feeling that that would be the case as well there.
With a cul-de-sac, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But we're just looking at a shared driveway easement, or, because
I just don't. I don't get warm and fuzzy feeling how we can.
Oh, just, so we had a planner appointment where all of this was pointed out and, all of these issues that would need to potentially be overcome, and the petitioners wanted to come before the plan commission to get your take on it, and whether, your feedback.
You said you had it?
We had a planner appointment where all of these things were discussed, yep, with the petitioner.
And we couldn't find a solution.
Okay, that's what I was asking for, that second part of the
They wanted
statement.
to present it and try to convince you that there is a solution.
The solution is that we're requesting the easement for the driveway. The buildable site is well within the 50 feet of the setback, depending upon that location of the secondary home. So when we came to the initial meeting, because that wasn't a conceptual review meeting, no one would give us a position on the easement being allowed. That's why we're here today.
Again, that's a policy choice.
and this turnaround we speak of, there hasn't been a turnaround there for 30 years.
There's been one house.
Correct, but,
It's not typical in this community to allow more than one house without a turnaround.
Right,
Well,
because
Nowadays, we don't
but-
even know
but-
if we want one house. That's still an issue for the
all I'm
village
saying is
board.
that the only issue was, when I brought this up last time, was because of emergency vehicles.
Right.
So
No, because it sets a horrible precedent, a horrible legal precedent. Do you know how many people would love to divide their lots into two and not spend a dime on fixing the cul-de-sac and the right of way? I have told many of my clients, and I will tell this board, if the board starts to allow this, I'm gonna go into the real estate business. Cause you know how many properties can be divided on easements if you don't have to spend a dime?
And what's gonna
Seriously,
happen?
and I say that seriously.
No, I
Think about that.
I agree with you. Somebody's gonna have a 6-foot wall of snow at the end of their driveway, and they're not gonna be able to get out on Esker Lane. I'm not questioning whether or not you've never seen a plow down there. Now we're gonna have,
No, I never said a plow backs down our road now and plows out. There's not an issue with snow plow removal, and from where Esker Lane ends, that's our driveway. We don't, snow removal is our responsibility. So I just wanna know where this, I guess to summarize everything, the footprint that we need to provide on an upland corridor can be met. So are you saying that this turnaround or easement or this roundabout, if we bring that onto our property, that's acceptable, but now that disrupts the 810 as well?
Because we can.
Because we
make a
can
large
move that to the
circular-
810.
We can make it a large circular driveway.
Yeah,
It wouldn't matter if it's a driveway, it's gotta be a public road. Most communities, and as I said, this board This village board has not made a decision on whether they're going to allow any houses without fixing the turnaround. If you were here to build your first house, the board would have to decide whether they were going to allow that without building the cul-de-sac. Correct me if I'm wrong.
What
We've had
defines a
2 or 3
cul-de-sac then?
instances. And, pardon?
What defines a cul-de-sac or a turnaround? What are you,
Well,
what
we
are you
have
looking for?
standards for it. It's a 90 foot radius and
Yes, not radius.
Circumference.
45 foot
Radius and a 90-foot circumference, right? Okay.
Diameter for the right of way.
this is a major policy decision for the plan commission and for the board. And we almost faced it on another property 6 months or 9 months or so ago. They withdrew. The other property that was here in front of you just before came in and said, we'll build it. It wasn't a question. We're gonna build it. You know, we realized that that is the norm, is to build the cul-de-sac, we're gonna build it.
Built here, they could make that home non-conforming. Potentially,
It says it has to be looked at.
that's the potential issue.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
If you put the cul-de-sac in here with the right of way, that home could become a non-conforming home. It's too close to the road. Setback isn't far enough.
Sure.
So if something happened, house has gotta get torn down. Like if something happens to the house, you can rebuild it there, I mean,
Right, it would have to be another.
The
area.
existing home.
The
existing home. And that's not usually a good policy to create situations like that.
Sure.
When
then
you
you
come,
don't do
when you
it.
come in, where you see the easement and where the arrow is to the 30-foot wide driveway, there's ample space there. Again, I understand it's not part of the public road, but there's ample space that if
But it's on the
initially
corner.
the concern was emergency vehicles, now I'm hearing, well, no, we
Now
just
it's
don't want to
plowing.
set
Now
a
it- yeah.
precedence. So if we have a fire truck come to our home, it's going up the same driveway.
And
It's not about, this isn't just about you though. This is something if you, like John stated, if you do this here, you're gonna have to allow it other places and.
I
true, but-
understand,
But we're
but-
also talking a 10-acre parcel and a 30-acre. We're not doing a low density, blowing this up into
Residential.
You're
6.
not, but the next person could.
off of
No.
a-
And the only reason you're doing that is because you have very little usable land.
Well, it's all
not because
usable.
It's not because you don't have 6 acres you want to split into 2 3s. It's because you have de minimis amount of property that can even be developed.
Well, there's 7 acres there, so I wouldn't call it de minimis. So,
Right.
and I mean, this is a very vague illustration of it. Nobody obviously here came out to the property, even through the planning process. And I have pictures that indicate, and obviously with Google Earth, I'm in construction, there's buildings that exist that don't exist on Google Earth. So I would advise everyone to take a realistic look at the property and see that this is achievable, because well, you know, unique circumstances, they talked about it before. How is this not falling under unique?
My point earlier was that you have a reasonable use of your property. You have a home on it. You're saying you should be allowed to divide it. That's up to,
Correct.
that's up to the village.
Mhm.
That's not guaranteed.
Well,
And so we're asking, can we divide it and just tell us what would
Yeah,
need
how
to
would
You
that-
conform?
divide it, but then you gotta put a cul-de-sac in.
So that's what we're asking. That's the recommendation. So if it's splittable, of course, we need to follow then if the cul-de-sac would be required outside of working with just the easement.
We need 120 feet.
Okay, and then what is the setback from property lines then?
50-foot minimum to the overhang.
Okay,
For the cul-de-sac. Okay.
okay, so then we could use our driveway.
Yeah,
And-
we'd have to use our existing driveway off to the right. There's ample space well beyond our current,
Corridor too.
but it's buildable.
But you just said if we put a
Well, there's a
cul-de-sac.
building envelope with potential, right? I don't know. If Upland corridor is not
But-
just a cut and dry thing.
Sure, but we're presenting the turnaround or a turnaround that hasn't been there forever, which a
Well,
plow.
we're negotiating at a board table right now.
I know,
It's
but,
tough,
but it's, but it's,
'cause
but
there's
it's
not-
odd
we're-
because,
We're talking about what ifs when we're
well,
not looking at.
well,
it.
I know
That's tough.
what I know, and
Easements
that's a
would
plow
count, yeah,
truck.
for
It's
sure.
been backing up, plowing
Well,
to
that,
Esker Lane.
that's irrelevant. It's the fact that we're gonna require a cul-de-sac. We're just gonna.
That's
Trust
fine.
me, John and I have gone back and forth on this many a time,
Okay,
and we're gonna end up requiring a cul-de-sac there.
that's fair.
That's right, and we would
So-
work obviously with a professional to map out that, so all of the setbacks, all of the requirements, but why are we gonna spend the money if you wouldn't even approve the split of the parcel? That's why we're here.
And that's trying to determine whether or not, with all this going in, if it's, we can do that with our code, because it sounds like it's kind of back and forth here a little bit.
Again, so I've pointed out all the factors that have to be considered for this, right? It is a very environmentally sensitive area, right? It's either where their house is currently, or it's the area of upland corridor, or it's wetland. It's
Mind you,
all,
this was
it's all
this was
environmental corridor.
previously zoned residential.
Yeah.
It just changed
It
to
just changed to
A10.
A10.
So 1 year ago, we wouldn't be talking about this.
Well, we talk about the entrance, man. We may not be talking about whether the land could be divided, but
I
we'd be talking about the access.
Absolutely, absolutely, but
I
Just so
don't,
we,
I don't think the
point
environmental
to-
corridor changed though at that time. So I mean, the point is the area that was developable ideally is where your home sits.
Mhm. Which was changed to A10,
Right.
correct, okay. So.
But
with
but I'm
cul-
saying the environmental corridor part didn't change. So the area that you're talking about developing in, there's no change there.
Actually, I would have to go look back. I think the residential area was bigger than the A10.
Or is there a formula for the building envelope?
Yeah, again, for the properties that don't have any other option, that don't have development on them, the prescription is a 30,000 square foot envelope.
and you should probably explain what the village president's position, I don't want to speak for him, he's gonna correct me if I'm wrong, was you should be able to put one house on this property without putting in the cul-de-sac. And my position is, for lots of legal reasons, I don't even think the one house should go. I don't think we've ever disagreed that if you're gonna put a second house, you gotta put the cul-de-sac in, just so you know what the difference of opinion
Sure,
was.
no, I
And,
understand.
and I don't need to go into the reasons why, he feels his way and I feel my way. I just wanted to explain, when he said he and I have been back and forth on this specific issue, I think we've been consistent. If you want the second house, you gotta fix the end of the road, be it a cul-de-sac, be it you just gotta fix it somehow. And I'm not even sure, the cul-de-sac is the normal way to fix it if you're gonna have two lots. I mean, that's.
And I think the problem with the current house becoming non-conforming, because it'll be sitting too close to the road. If you want to sell it, those people can't do anything to it.
Keep in mind, this is just like the concept. You could pull it down here and it won't be anywhere
No.
near the house.
Yes.
Oh,
Right.
Yes.
Mitch just said if you
Okay.
put it on the end, it might be, and we don't have enough
It may
detail.
not even be.
But you
we have
you
ample
pull it a
space.
little ways down here
Okay.
and you don't, and you make it askew, there's all kinds of
There's
options.
Right.
there's ample space.
Right.
We actually thought
Right,
about
Mitch,
having
I
our own
mean,
little.
you were just saying that if they put it right here,
We would
it
not
might
be
be
conforming.
legal
No.
non-conforming. But there are solutions
They can
to
move it.
just tilt it and bring it down,
Okay.
and we don't make them all perfect circles right at the end of the road. We figure
It's
out a
just-
way to make it work.
Wherever you put that, it's gonna have to be to our road standard.
Right.
And they're
So-
gonna have to dedicate that all becomes dedicated road to the village.
Yes.
Okay,
You might consider hiring a surveyor who's got a lot of gray matter and see if he or she can make it work.
Yep.
I think that that's the only way that you're gonna get from point A to point B, in my opinion.
sure.
Is that the next step here then, that we would work with a surveyor, we would map out? the
Yeah,
cul-de-sac,
see if,
the
see
actual
if they can
buildable,
make it work. They have all the
30,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Right. All those details.
Yes,
The disturbance on the property that because theoretically it turns into two properties, now the upland corridor, we can put a home on it. The setbacks meet all the requirements, the 50 feet, correct?
From wetlands, right?
From
So you-
wetlands, right,
You
yeah.
you would probably want to do a more recent wetland delineation to make sure that it's
Oh,
accurate.
absolutely.
Like
That wetland hasn't grown.
yeah,
That's what my concern is. If I own the property, they don't get smaller, they get bigger.
Hmm.
And they may be encroaching, that mapping isn't,
No, that's not.
it's
ridiculous.
definitely a large esker. I mean, it's much higher. than
Well, yeah, I was
the-
gonna say, given the topography here, that
Yeah.
usually the delineation is pretty easy when you have a topographic break like that.
Yeah.
It's like bottom of the slope, wetland starts,
yeah,
got
I
it,
mean-
yeah.
I have one more question then too. If
Let
we-
me
oh,
make a comment on the wetland. Isn't, they can request that the community ask Sewer Pack to do the wetland, so there's no cost to them, isn't there? Is that a wetland delineation that Sewer Pack does at their pace?
They do,
Instead of,
they do provide that service, but you go in the end of their queue.
yeah, but
How
I
many
just
people they
wanted to
got?
say,
We,
you know,
there's an option to.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to
Thank you.
answer your question that you can hire, you heard that earlier.
Mhm.
You can hire your own person and get it done on your timetable, or you don't get to request it from Sewer Pack. You request that the village request it for you, correct?
But it may be the end of the year,
Yeah.
Well,
Well, if we.
and they can
make a
comment
change to
on
that,
the,
we can-
they can comment on the corridor.
unless you
boundary
get
as
it
well.
done.
So my question was, with the cul-de-sac, if that ends up being within the upper corridor, is that's separate than the 30,000 buildable space, correct? Because that's
I-
a village
I
property.
believe it is, yeah. I think for public right of way purposes, I don't think that counts against
Okay.
your 30,000 square feet.
Okay.
I think the access easement would,
Sure,
but you wouldn't need one if you build a
But you
cul-de-sac,
need 35 feet.
right? So you don't, if you build a cul-de-sac, you don't need an access easement. So earlier I said that the access
Correct.
easement part would count.
correct.
I don't think the cul-de-sac does.
Honestly, the cul-de-sac might help for both values because somebody doesn't have an easement in their driveway. So,
It simplifies things.
I would suggest you get a surveyor with an imagination that just, they need to think outside the box, given the criteria the village has, and see if they can make it work. It would be the next step. You gotta spend some money, but it's the only way you're gonna get to the next step, because right now, I don't see how it can work. But maybe somebody else could.
thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck.
The other comment is be very careful how you pick your building envelope. It has to be on the certified survey map. It has to be approved.
Right.
And it's really hard to move it later. I've seen people come in, they sort of didn't think it through thoroughly where they were gonna put that building or envelope in the environmental corridor. And then somebody wants to build a house and they want to move it and it's expensive. You would all agree, it's just a pain to try to move it. It has to be on the certified survey map. It has to be approved by the village and
And that's to the overhang, not the wall. It's the overhang of the building.
I've run into it, but they don't like where they had decided the building envelope was gonna be.
Yeah, we're aware. All of that would need to be
Yeah.
platted out as part of the survey. Yeah,
As long as you're doing your checklist, I
Yeah.
didn't wanna miss. one
And
that we've
let's just
seen.
add perk test for the
Yes.
new lot.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item E, discussion and necessary action regarding the request by Stacy Litchig. Skin Tight Aesthetics for approval of site plan of operation amendment for the business location 95 West 25901. County Line Road, Suite F, LSBT 0158.994.011.
All right, this is site plan. This is an existing business within the existing shopping center. The use is allowed as a permitted use. The overall space is 2,291 square feet. Again, this is the County Line Plaza Shopping Center on Q and 164. The last time we talked about this property, it was for the proposed indoor golf simulator business use. So this is kind of further east of that portion of the development, kind of in the middle of the building. So the use again is a medical spa type use that provides personal aesthetic and skincare services and then has accessory retail sales of skincare products. The overall number of employees and hours are listed. We did confirm these hours with the petitioner. There's no outdoor storage proposed. There's ample parking. The signage, there are existing wall signs and a monument sign panel on the panel rather on the monument sign for this business. There's an application for sign replacement that has been submitted to the building inspector and is awaiting a permit. Brian, can you confirm that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. But they had to get this site plan of operation approval first. As far as our conditions of approval, they're all very boilerplate rather. I'd point out that there's, again, that condition that any business signage be required to obtain signage approval through the Village of Lisbon sign application process. That's condition number 3. I believe the petitioner is on Zoom if there's any specific questions for them.
Questions from the commission?
None.
Applicant wants to state.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Anything you want to state to the commission?
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Okay.
Unless you have any questions for me.
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay.
All right, nothing else from staff?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval as submitted. Include the planner's comments.
Second?
Second.
Second by Sean. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item F, discussion and necessary action regarding the request by applicant Joe Maluka Beeler Construction on behalf of owner Keith Alexander, Alex Reynolds for approval of a site plan of operation amendment for the business located at North 48 West 22953 Commerce Center Drive, LSPT 0287.986. Warren?
So this is for site plan of operation amendment for an approximately 18,170 square foot addition to the existing accessory building here at this parcel. Busy Sewer owns several parcels in this area. This particular one, they will be almost doubling the size of this storage building on the east side of the parcel. The addition is going to be internal, so they'll be adding the addition on the west side of that. As far as the M2 rather district standards, this is going to meet all of the requirements. As far as parking, the minimum off-street parking requirements are being met. There's an existing parking lot on the north side of the lot, adjacent to Commerce Center Drive. Again, the addition is 18,170 square feet. The existing building is approximately 19,542 square feet. So after the addition, there'd be approximately 39,104 square feet. The other building is Busy Sewer's water blasting office and shop. That's on the west side of the property, which is approximately 29,184 square feet. No new signage is being proposed. The few things I just want to point out, if you look at the aerial photo, there's some outdoor storage that's occurring on the property. In the west lot line and in the southwest corner of the property. The outdoor storage in the southwest corner of the property is partially within the C1 zoned area of the site. Outdoor storage is not identified on the site plan. It's not screened and is only allowed in the M2 district, subject to the approval of the site plan of operation amendment by the Plan Commission. Outdoor storage isn't allowed at all in the C1. I'm recommending that all work performed, improvements constructed, and use of the property be according to the submitted application materials, the municipal code, and all their applicable ordinances, regulations, and permits, which would be cleaning those things up. The other comment in here was regarding fire suppression. I have a condition that this approval will be subject to the fire chief's review of the water tank for fire suppression. Is the existing water tank that's there for fire suppression designed for this addition in mind, or will it be expanded for this addition?
But
Okay.
let's have you come on up to the mic.
Good evening, I'm Joe Maluka from Bueller Construction. So the storage tank has a volume of 20,000 gallons, and it is designed for the addition.
Okay. So the storage tank is on the south end of the existing building, and again, the proposed addition will match as far as the architecture of the existing building. There'll be, metal siding and roof. There'll be a nice, wainscoting or skirt of, is it a?
Has a masonry curb wall.
Yeah.
And then above it is a pre-engineered metal building.
Yep. And then that'll all, again, match in with the existing building, and the brick material or stone material will match the office
Existing.
building. Yeah. Any questions?
Are there floor drains in this thing?
No floor drains.
Thank you. Where's the drainage from the site drainage goes in? You got a pond over there, right?
There is.
Okay. So it
On the
doesn't,
south side of the line, there's a drainage facility, basically a corridor that runs from there all the way up to the Plainville Road.
I'm just concerned about, well,
There's a storm sewer that's underneath the project that's gonna get rerouted to that facility as well, that drains Commerce Center Road to ditch, and it comes over, goes south to through the property.
there's floor drains in there. I would recommend that we put in a sampling manhole, but we're not gonna need it in this case. So that's all I have, sir.
Barry, anything?
Nope, no comment.
Sean?
And you're gonna make it blue, right?
So blue. Of course. Is there another color?
I would be surprised if you mentioned some. Okay, I don't have anything else, sir.
Anything else from staff?
Just that, sheet C100 shows the, relocation of the existing drainage and access easement.
Can't read this fine print.
We are also working on modifying the easement for the storm sewer because it's being rerouted, and the access easement to this property, so.
They probably know somebody that does that work.
Is there a motion on this?
Motion for approval is presented.
I'll second.
Seconded for approval as presented. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed.
Thank you.
Start putting up
Thank
the
you,
blue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience for waiting for 2 hours. Or 3.
You said you're gonna wait the building for me?
Oh,
Now we're getting crazy.
Where?
What
Discussion.
can?
I don't think we said that.
Item G, discussion and necessary action regarding the request by Linda Puccini, Fairways of Woodside Golf Course for approval of site plan of operation amendment for the business located at West 235 and 8518 Clubhouse Circle, LSBT 0188.045.
The petitioner's representative is present on Zoom.
Boil this one down, the golf course would like to be able to have, in addition to their existing electric golf carts, gas-powered golf carts. And the previous site plan of operation was specific and mentioned specifically electric golf carts, did not mention gas-powered golf carts, so out of an abundance of caution, we're having them propose this amendment to their site plan of operation. So I've included the language from the previous site plan of operation. There's an excerpt there in the staff review from both. The requested amendment is for, again, based on the cost and safety associated with the electrical carts. They're more expensive and have a higher risk of starting on fire, so there's insurance implications there as opposed to using the gas carts. The owner would basically like the opportunity to use one and or the other, depending on what best suits their needs.
This was originally done, the technology with golf carts was way different. Gas engines were a lot louder.
Yeah, you have a comment in here from the petitioner that as far as the noise is concerned, the amount of decibels, it's pretty comparable. 59 for the existing electric versus 61 for the proposed gas. The petitioner did provide a cut sheet of the proposed gas tank, which will be double walled. It is on concrete. The number of deliveries will increase based on using this. But I think it'll be reasonable still. So that's what's being proposed. Again, the petitioner is available if there's questions.
As Fire Marshal Bill signs off on it.
Yep, we do have our boilerplate condition number 6 regarding fire inspection.
The applicant wants to add?
No.
Ashley, can you hear us okay?
Oh, I can hear you. Nothing to add.
Okay. Anything else from staff? Is there a motion from the commission? I'll move to approve. Before we don't go home tonight, for God's sake. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so
Motion-
much.
Oh, hang on, not done yet. Motion's been made. We're almost there. Trust me, we're trying. Any final discussion?
Well, I don't.
Joe.
He's gonna.
Don't go towards that holster.
All
No.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries 5-0. Now you can have a good night.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Have a good night.
don't know how you guys sat through all that.
It's early.
Or a very short plenary.
Nothing further to report tonight.
All right, well, before we adjourn, this is my last plan commission meeting. I want to thank the plan commission members for, it's been a long time. We had many different members. Brian, been with you the entire time. Been good. Appreciate all your, it has been.
Makes me feel old.
Why do I have more gray hair than you?
There's a mirror in the men's room.
I think we've had some really good boards. We've had a lot of back and forth, very respectful back and forth between the boards, and I really appreciate that and thank everybody for their efforts and participation. I want to thank John. This is also his last meeting. We'll have a different attorney at the next meeting. So,
My pleasure. Love working with you guys and it's been a great experience. Love coming to new communities, learning their culture and getting to know everybody. It was great. Thank you all for your patience with me.
it's definitely been good working with you, John. This is, doesn't go without saying, but I think you're probably one of the most knowledgeable attorneys I've ever met, and I really appreciate everything you've been able to bring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Orin, it's been good working with you.
Pleasure.
Wish you luck moving forward. And
Thank you.
so, Elisa, thank you. I'll be able to thank you again soon.
You still have one more board meeting.
I got
You're
one more
not
to go.
quite done yet.
Well, I could go on vacation for that. Who knows?
Yeah, no, we're gonna stack that meeting.
So, thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody. And with that, I will make the motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brian. No discussion. All in favor? Aye.
I got
Aye,
9:13.
aye. Look at ayes. All right, we got at least 3. We're at 9:13. Thank you.